The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
Welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today, we will be answering listener emails from our exploding email bag. We have a question from Stephen, who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Stephen asks, Trump has been gifted a $400 million jet from Qatar, which I think he has accepted. It's reported that this luxury jet is for his use during and after his term. Something tells me that this is not only unethical, but illegal. Isn't there a rule about gifts being given to the president? I always thought that gifts given to the president weren't really his, but belonged to the American people. Help me out with this one. And yes, Stephen, you are correct. It's called the Emoluments Clause, and it is in the Constitution, if I am correct. The president cannot accept gifts because then those are bribes, effectively. And go ahead, Mark, Scott.
Well, yeah, I mean, that basically sums it up. Yes, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution says prohibits anyone in the U.S. government from receiving a personal gift from a foreign head of state without the consent of Congress. And there's the other idea of in 1966, a law was passed that basically says the same thing. Congress must approve these. Now, will this Republican Congress approve it? Couldn't tell you. I would probably think so. And first of all, we have to remember, Qatar is not our friend. They are not our friend. They are in league with a whole bunch of the terrorist groups in the Middle East, and anybody that thinks that Qatar is our friend is really kidding themselves. Now, there's also two different types of gifts. There's domestic gifts, which can be given to the president and first lady, and they may dispose of them as they wish, up to a certain amount, as far as value is concerned. $400 million is an awful lot. I don't know too many people that are going to give Trump $400 million. But normally, a gift of this size coming from a foreign country is, again, this is the way the system works, is managed by the State Department. So that, again, shows a bit of a conflict there. And the reason this exists is to make sure that the president can't be bribed or have a conflict of interest. And I think it's very telling that, Qatar offers this jet to the president, who has publicly said the Air Force One is a piece of junk. It's 40 years old. Yes, it is 40 years old. Yes, it probably needs an upgrade, no doubt about that. But to say that I'm going to take this jet, we're going to use this as Air Force One until I get out of office, and then he's going to send it to his library, which is really nothing more than a museum. A library indicates that there's going to be books and documents, and I can't see Trump having very many books or documents or anything like that. It's probably just going to be a Trump is wonderful museum. Can he do it? If the Congress says he can do it, then yes. So really, all eyes are on the Congress, and there are some GOP congressmen are really calling into question whether or not this is legit or not. So I guess we're gonna have to wait and see what they have to say.
Yeah. So I think one of the most troubling things about this story is that you don't hear enough Republicans yelling about it. And some have. I think Nikki Haley did. I believe Ted Cruz did. I'm not sure that'll be a consistent theme for him. But this idea, the thing I find most disturbing about it is that it goes back to this idea of grievances, and it's okay to be corrupt because society is against us. And Trump's, most ardent supporters believe that he should be able to get away with acts of corruption in a way that's kind of similar to the way a lot of African Americans felt about O.J. Simpson getting away with murder. That O.J. Simpson getting away with murder somehow makes up for years of Black people getting arrested and convicted of crimes that they didn't commit, or a double standard in the justice system. And that, similar to that, the Trump voter looks at Trump as, he's just like me. The system is rigged against me. And God damn it, Trump's getting away with it. Good for him. It's just so disgusting. They get it so wrong. He is nothing like them. And he is completely void of any kind of decency. As somebody recently pointed out, his shamelessness is his superpower. I mean, we're so far away from, do you remember the Lincoln bedroom scandal during Bill Clinton's time in office, where people could come to the White House and sleep in Lincoln's bedroom, and they would pay some amount of money to the Clinton campaign or whatever it was, in order to do that. And now we're so far from the Lincoln bedroom. We're talking about this airplane, which will never be used as Air Force One, because it'll take too much time to basically tear it apart and make sure that it's safe for a U.S. president to travel in. I think I read the other day that there's something like 731 miles of wires in a 747. And they're going to have to look through all of that and make sure that there's not, listening devices or tracking devices. Air Force One is a military and security operation. It's not just a plane. So I don't think Trump is ever going to use it, or any president in the next 4 or 5 years is going to use it as Air Force One. But this idea that he can keep it after his presidency is over, which may never happen, is again just like another vile thing that Trump is doing, and it's getting normalized by the American people, or a segment of the American people, and it's just going to lead to more and more corruption on his part.
And what you're saying, Scott, about the tearing the plane apart to make sure it's safe, and it's basically has to be a flying fortress. It has to have a hospital in it, a surgery. It has to have everything that might possibly be needed. One of Trump's arguments was, well, he has to accept this, and it's on behalf of the Department of Defense and this and that, and he's never going to use it as a personal plane, because then it's going to go into his library. And Boeing, there's contracts with Boeing for another Air Force One, but Boeing takes too long. So he's not canceling the Boeing contracts, which means that the American taxpayer is paying for another Air Force One or multiple models. I have no idea even what we're paying for Air Force One with Boeing. We are going to be paying to retrofit, or whatever it's called, with the plane from Qatar, to make sure that it is in fact safe and up to the flying fortress, or whatever you want to call it, the Air Force One presidential standards, and defense standards. So we're going to be paying for that. And if he were serious that he was never going to use this, or that it were going to go to the American people, then he would cancel the Boeing contracts, because there wouldn't be any need for another Air Force One. And there would be a stipulation, a contract, that this plane was going to go to the next president and the president thereafter, and so on and so on and so on. And that would be put in writing, and it would be signed, and it would go into the presidential records or wherever it's supposed to go, the archive. And none of that has happened. So in fact, we're paying additional money, and I have no idea how many hundreds of millions it's going to cost to prepare this airplane.
$1 billion is
$1 billion.
the sum that I read. Yeah.
Okay. So $1 billion now to prepare this free airplane, plus the Boeing plane that we're waiting on. So we're paying additional money. The same as we did under Doge, which was supposed to save money, which has in fact cost the taxpayer more money than it would have had there not been any Doge. I mean, so under Trump, we're actually spending much more than we would have. We're not saving anything. So none of this, if one is looking at it logically, just from a financial standpoint, there are no savings for anybody, and clearly he's going to take it. And if he takes it, obviously, he's going to use it. A plane that large is going to, even if it were going to go in it, what are you going to do? Put it in storage and let it sit there? You know how big the building would have to be to hold something like that? A huge hangar. And you're going to put all that money into it and then just let it sit around? Obviously, he's going to use it. So everything he says is completely untrue.
Well, and I agree with Scott. I think the interesting thing is right now, yeah, the whole situation is a little odd, but let's see what the Republican Congress does. That will be that's going to be the tell whether or not they're on board with all this and they recognize it for exactly what it is. And if they do, hey, good for them. If they don't, I think that the American people have to look at that and say, wow, okay, maybe that's an issue.
So I have a further question then. How long does the Congress, since they're on all on the same day, and I don't know if that same day holds true for any legislation that they might happen to pass, and apparently they really haven't passed anything much. So are we talking the whole Congress or just the House, because this has to do with money? And how long do they have to make up their minds? Because Trump has, as far as I know, has already accepted this plane. Right? So what happens if it's accepted and delivered before Congress has said yes or no? What do? Send it back?
I'm not sure. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves onto that. Yeah, he's accepted it in principle. I'm sure there's going to be a long process, drawn-out process, and Congress will have its opportunity to weigh in on this. And so, I mean, it's not like he's going to get it tomorrow. I doubt that he's going to get it in his possession or in the United States possession within the next 6 months or so. So it's a process. I mean, and we'll have to see what happens. Yeah, I heard it was in Miami or somewhere down there. Trump could take a look at it or whatever. But as far as, changing over the title, I don't know if we're even there yet. So we have to wait to see what stage we're at in this transaction.
Yeah, and I think Qatar itself, the government there, has said that they floated the idea about donating the plane. They haven't done it yet. So, and that it could be months before they decide that this is something that they really want to do. But his attitude towards it is very Trumpy, right? Only a fool would not accept this gift. You take it, right? That's so Trump, right? You just take anything anybody's willing to give you, or they leave not nailed down is just for the taking. So just take it. So transactional, right? Because a few years ago, Trump pointed out that Qatar is the number one sponsor of terrorism in the Middle East, more so than Iran is, and providing 1.8 billion, I think it is, to Hamas alone, and now, of course, because they've offered him an airplane, he backs off on that and says, what a great country it is, full of really smart people and all that kind of stuff. It's He's got a golf course going in there. He'll have hotels there. This is very Trump tactical, transactional, has no benefit at all to the United States. As Brooke points out, it's just another cost for us, along with his many trips to golf courses that he owns and things like that, where he charges the Secret Service more money than anybody's ever charged them before to stay in his places and so on. So, the whole thing is it's just, I think the biggest part of it is the normalization of corruption and the willingness of his base to go along with it because, God bless him, he can get away with anything. And that's what they want more than anything else from their champion.
Yeah.
And we should let's please move on to something else, because this is getting me more and more disgusted.
Well, just to make you even more disgusted, Scott, BBC is reporting that sitting next to the Emir of Qatar, Trump announces a raft of agreements, including $200 billion Qatari order for Boeing planes. So we'll just let it sit at that. So the answer to the question, yes, there is a rule against it. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I think the rule says it's like $450 or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
like $470 or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's some random.
Anything above that, you gotta get congressional approval for. But he'll get it. He'll get it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he did. Yeah, it's sickening. It really is. So thank you for the question, Stephen. We appreciate it. It is illegal. You are correct. Thank you for listening, and thank you to all our listeners. Do stay safe and take care of one another. And remember what American principles and human principles and ethics really are, not what Trump says they are. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you again next time.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!